You're listening to the Good Old Boys Fantasy Football Podcast. Now here's your hosts, Kevin, Derek, and Alex.
Alrighty, welcome in, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of the Good Old Boys Fantasy Football Podcast. I'm Derek, and I'm joined, as always, by your co-host, Kevin. How are we doing tonight?
What is going on? This doesn't really have anything to do with football, but this is how my day is going. This is the last Friday I worked for the entire year. I had all this vacation to burn and everything else. So I said, you know what? I'm going to take some 3 days. And sure enough, I had enough for every single Friday for the remainder of the year and still take a week off around Christmas to be with my family. What up, Nate? So I am about as happy as one could possibly be. Plus, I get to hang out with you and talk football tonight. So, I mean, you can't keep a good man down, Derek, and right. I'm feeling it right now.
I like it. I like it a lot. Although, you know what I'm not liking is this slate of games this week, right? Like you got the buy-again going on. You've got Bipocalypse. You've got, whatever creative name that all of these folks have come up with and kind of coined this week to really summarize this thing. And it was one of those we kind of mentioned on the Tuesday show when it's start sits kind of get easy this week. If they're eligible, play them. Like that's how a lot of these rosters are going, to the point where, some teams I've seen out there that are struggling right now to actually field a full roster because of all the buys that they have and all the injuries and IRs that they have out there.
Yeah. So I was on my way home from a softball game tonight, and I was listening to Michael Fabiano's show, who he does an excellent job, but he was talking about in there's a league that he's in, and he was talking about this where he has to start 4 tight ends this week to fill out his roster spots. Like, there is no one that is escaping this very well. Now, I will say that in our home league, I am relatively unscathed this week. I had depth in the right pieces. So I don't have Zeke, but I have Elijah Mitchell, who's not Zeke, but he's at least going to see some volume for the Niners. Justin Jefferson's out on bye, but I got Calvin Ridley back from last week, so I'm just swapping those two out and hoping that, my shine of the week, Sam Darnold and DJ Moore, decide to show up in the Meadowlands and put some points up for me here.
Yeah, that would be a good thing for you. I also had, my roster was affected by it, but not crazy dramatically, like a lot of teams out there. I've got Dalvin Cook on a bye. I've got Dak on a bye. I've got CeeDee Lamb on a bye. So I've got some major pieces on a bye, but I had enough depth that I could float that in there to a point where I'm not necessarily hurting tremendously at that. And it's going to be one of those that I'm going to be very competitive this week, even with major pieces being out there.
Well, there's one league in particular where you and I are co-owning, right? Mm-hmm. And we have Zeke, Eckler, and James Robinson all on a bye. Like, we are starting like Marlon Mack and, Khalil. Maybe we did get Khalil Hubbard. I didn't check and see who the other one was. Honestly, I knew this week was going to be bad. So, yeah. But it's ugly. Like, so as everybody's tuning in and you start getting fired up and getting into this, feel free to shout out, any trade offers you have coming your way, start sits. Maybe you're in a fortunate position where you're not missing a lot of key pieces tonight, but everybody seems to be affected in one way or another, whether it's all the bye weeks or just the seemingly high number of injuries or questionable tags that we have going into this weekend's slate of games. So it seems like the only player on planet Earth who's not dinged up is Derrick Henry. And hey, look out, he just went for another 70-yard run. Like, holy, that Old Spice commercial is freaking true.
Yes.
Right? All these Old Spice commercials, and this is a shameless plug for Old Spice, right? But all these Old Spice commercials are supposed to be like spoofy, like they're just funny, like gimmicky, whatever. The one that Derrick Henry's in against the Rams, right, where he's just still running and everything. He's still freaking running. Like,
right.
I saw an interesting. Last note. I saw an interesting thing. It might have been on Facebook today, or maybe it was Twitter. I don't remember. that was said NFL leading rushers this season.
Mm-hmm.
Number 1 was Derrick Henry. Number 2 was Derrick Henry yards after contact.
Yep.
Then it got into whoever
Nick
else.
Chubb was the
Nick
second.
Chubb, yeah, Nick Chubb, and then Zeke, and then whatever. But holy crap, man! Like, wrap him up.
Right.
Easier said than done, right?
Right.
Like people are trying to wrap him up, and they get a massive stiff arm, and they go flying 5 yards off to the sideline. But holy crap! Like this far into the season, to have the leading rusher also be the second leading rusher only if you count his yards after contact.
Right.
Mind blowing. Just mind blowing.
I remember seeing what you saw there, and it was something to the extent of, I think he has like 587 yards after contact, and Nick Chubb has like 570 yards, just straight up rushing yards. So it is absolutely spectacular. Just the season that he's having and the pace that he's on. So yeah, I mean, let's go ahead and we'll kind of move over into some of the Thursday night recap there and go through some of that. And before we kind of get into it, posted something on our Twitter that I thought was very fitting. And so we're just going to bring that here to it. So this is what we posted out there earlier. It was the week of Buy-A-Geddon. All through fantasy leagues, managers were scrambling. No Chubb, Hunt, no Zeke, Eckler, Cook. Robinson, Najee, and the Bills Mafia's RBs just weren't available. The perfect storm of buys and injuries had happened, and then out of a Thursday night football came such a clamoring. A third-string running back that previously no one thought of starting came into the week to score 22.8 points in half PPR scoring. The previously undrafted player endearing himself into the hearts of many. The Browns fans rejoiced as Ernest Johnson carried them to victory. So,
yeah. God, the Broncos are so bad.
Yes.
I really didn't think I would have to renounce my fandom this season. Like, I held out some hope. They're such a bad football team. And the crazy thing is Teddy Bridgewater's better than Drew Lock. And actually, Teddy Bridgewater's playing terribly right now. Like, he's holding on to the ball. He's short throwing receivers. He's taking seemingly bad sacks, and the offensive line's not stellar, right? Like, I understand that, but oh my gracious, man. I get so frustrated watching the Broncos play football right now that it just makes me want to pull my hair out.
Yeah. Well, it was an interesting one to bet too, because I ended up doing some kind of weird things, hedging some bets, things like that. And it was to the point where I had so many push bets on that game last night because of the fact that it was a 3-point spread, and it turned out to be a 3-point game, and to be honest, it wasn't much different than we called it on the Tuesday show there, where we were thinking that was going to be a low scoring game. Even with that under being low, like there was lots of different things to it. And yeah, this was one of those that I heard a lot of very strange things, I thought, coming out of that game, where I heard several times that Case Keenum is greater than Baker Mayfield. I heard that Drew Lock should be in there because Drew Lock is better than Teddy Bridgewater. And I wanted to take some time here opening this one up to kind of talk about both of those, because I think both of those are just incorrect. And I don't know that there's a way that you can necessarily say that both of the backup quarterbacks are better than their starters in front of them. There's some cases to be made. I can get that. But overall, I don't think that there's any way that you can reasonably argue that one.
No. Drew Lock is not better than Teddy Bridgewater. We saw that the second half of the Ravens
right.
game when Teddy went out with the concussion, and the Broncos were at home. They had every, I'm not going to say advantage, but almost every advantage, right? Aside from a negative game script that they're trying to get back into the game. And Drew Lock couldn't move the chains.
No.
It was 3 and out, 3 and out, 3 and out, 3 and out, 3 and out. Like that was the second half for the Broncos because Drew Lock can't move the chains. He cannot digest or diagnose the play fast enough and read the defense well enough to make it happen. So he's not the answer. Teddy, while better than, isn't that much greater than. Like Tim Patrick is a very, very serviceable wide receiver, especially as a number 2. Like, is he out of this world? No, but most teams don't have a spectacular number 2 receiver.
Right. And in his role, he's actually the number 3, just filling in for the number 2.
Right. And so Case Keenum better than Baker. Case Keenum does understand the offense, so he looked very smooth coming in, but it's not like they drove the ball down the field.
No.
Odell, they don't have a wide receiver core, period. Right? Jarvis came back, did okay, but nothing spectacular. Odell went out because he re-aggravated his shoulder injury. Austin Hooper had 5 catches. David Njoku had 2 for 18 yards. Like, the Browns didn't win that game through the air.
No.
Like, Donovan Peoples-Jones was held as a goose egg. Like, we thought he might have some appeal this week due to his deep play ability and how the Broncos have been getting beat lately. He had a goose egg. The Cleveland Browns just manned up, put on their big boy pants, and said, okay, you guys on the offensive line, this game's on you. And they said, okay. And they just bulldozed the Denver Broncos out of the way.
Right. And it was one of those that, some of these things that I saw on, the Case Keenum Baker argument was that, he looked so much better, that Browns team was moving the ball so well, that he was, hitting guys, like just kind of the narrative going through there. But
they only scored 17 points. It's correct. Not like if they would have put up 42,
then maybe
you have reason for controversy, right? It was 17 freaking points. Like, get out of here.
17 points on a Broncos team that couldn't stop the run. Like, you had that thing so well set up that, and Stefanski and how they kind of run things, it all runs off of the run, right? Establish the run to open up the pass down the field. The fact that they didn't try and drive the ball down the field tells you where the confidence level that team has really in Case Keenum, where he's a very serviceable backup, but they're not looking for him to try and challenge Baker on this one, because again, I don't think that he's going to. Right. So there's a few other things that kind of come into play on this one for me. Right. Case Keenum has been in Stefanski's system with the Browns for a season and a half now. So he knows the playbook in and out, knows that system. But if you've watched more than just that Browns game last night, that was a very scaled back version of the offense, which as a coach and a play caller, you should be doing when your backup is in there on a short week, especially. So a couple of things in there. One, you're talking about a scaled back version of the offense. They're not necessarily running that thing out there and letting him really open things up and push the ball down the field and really try and attack that Broncos offense. They came in with a plan that we're going to control the clock. We're going to let our third string running back go out there and just go ham. And oh, by the way, our third string and our fourth string running back averaged over 6 yards a carry on that one. So I think it was probably more of a brilliant job as far as play calling and setting up a scheme and setting up things on the Browns offensive side of the ball, more so than Case Keenum really going out there and showcasing it, right? Like, this is one of those, I look back to like the previous week or 2 weeks ago when you saw the Browns and the Chargers get into that 47-42 type of shootout. Case Keenum doesn't even keep the Browns in that game. They lose that game by 20 or 30 points in that one. So that's kind of my rant done there.
No, I'd agree. It's a testament to how well Kevin Stefanski and his coaching staff are doing there in Cleveland. Mm-hmm. Vic Fangio doesn't have that, right? Like, Vic Fangio is a better coach than Urban Meyer. Well, okay, that's who they beat in week 1. Vic Fangio is a better coach than Joe Judge. Okay, that's the Giants. So I guess the Giants were week 1, the Jags were week 2. Is Vic Fangio really a better coach than Robert Saleh? I don't know. Like, the Broncos have more talent this year. That probably won them the game. But then he goes up against real coaches, like coaches and staffs, and the Ravens knock him out. Say what you want. The Raiders coaching staff is a good coaching staff, with or without John Gruden. But that staff has been intact, and it's a better staff than what the Broncos have. And then obviously in Cleveland, like, Fangio won't lose his job. We covered this on our Tuesday show, right? Fangio won't lose his job because of the situation in ownership going on with the Denver Broncos organization. But I don't know. If things continue, I don't know that Fangio is the guy for this job. Like, they need something different. We need to bring in a different type of head coach because this rough-nosed, I'm a defense guy, isn't working. Our defense has been terrible since Fangio got here, and he was supposed to be like bringing back the Super Bowl era defense and just letting linebackers rough shot. We don't have a good linebacker on the roster. We loaded up with secondary players, but we can't get any pressure on the quarterback. So everything the secondary doesn't look as good when you can't get pressure on the quarterback. So I'm over Vic Fangio. I'm over my Denver Broncos right now. And yeah, that's my mood for the team.
There you go. All righty. I think we've kind of covered the Thursday night game there enough. And if you managed to stick through that thing and watch it, I give you praise. I was one of those that watched it all the way through, but it was not the most enjoyable primetime game that we've seen. That was probably the worst primetime game that we've had all season so far.
Yeah. Good thing my kids went to bed at halftime. They didn't have to listen to dad cuss up a storm and learn new words.
That's probably a good thing. All right. We do have a question coming in here before we start getting into the slate of games. Nate on YouTube, pick two. Who should I start? Hopkins, Debo, or DJ Moore?
That's a great problem to have considering everything that's going on this week. Let's see. I like Debo. I think Debo's kind of the absolute must.
Debo's the smash for me.
And really, I'm going to tell you DJ Moore. I think the Cardinals are going to run the ball more against Houston. I don't know that they need DeAndre Hopkins. While still elite level talent, this Cardinals offense is changing in front of our eyes. And they have all these weapons now. And the Cardinals and Cowboys are probably neck and neck as far as versatile offensive weapons, especially since the Cardinals got Zach Ertz. So if I'm picking two for this week, I'm thinking Debo and DJ Moore because neither one of those games I see is a blowout. They'll continue throwing all game long. I think the Cardinals could jump up by 17 at halftime, and they might throw 6 passes in the second half. Like this Houston team is not good, and they've been without a touchdown in back-to-back weeks now. They might get one this week against the Cardinals, but it's not going to be enough to force Kyler to throw the ball all over the yard.
Right, I agree with you on that one. So the Giants and the Panthers right now, the line is about 3 points on the spread with it. The Cardinals is an 18-point spread. So it'll be one of those that I think that you'll see that this thing basically get game scripted out to the point where second half Cardinals just kind of go into clock management mode and just kill the clock and try and chew up as much as they can there to the point where you're not going to see many yards come through the air, and you're going to hope that Kyler hooks up with DeAndre Hopkins for quarter and a half. Maybe you get a full half out of that one, and you hope that he's gonna put up probably a big long play and put together a couple of receptions, fall in the end zone there to get you your points there. Whereas DJ Moore, I think, will be scripted into that game, and you'll see it throughout the game, and it'll be a constant type of thing. So just off a game script alone, I'm gonna go with the Debo and DJ Moore. But thanks for the question, Nate. That was a good one and a great problem to have here in Buyageddon. Well, Kevin, are we? We've got some games to rock and roll through, and we'll go ahead and start with the first game on the slate. The Washington football team travels to Green Bay to play the Packers. The Packers right now are favored by 8 in this one. The over/under is 47.5. What are your thoughts on this one?
I have Washington covering because I got a sweet promo bet on MGM app that it was like plus 325 or something that the Packers would win between 1 and 6 points. So I took it. Why the hell not? And so I'm going to tell you Washington covers, but the Packers win. They're at home. And realistically, I could see that happening. Like, I don't see this being a reason for Aaron Rodgers to have to force the ball down the field and everything else. Obviously, Devonte Adams will get his because he is the primary, secondary, and only target that's really of any use to Aaron Rodgers, it seems like most weeks. I know a lot of folks are starting Bobby Tonyan, hoping that he falls into the end zone after some, back-to-back weeks of just duds. But I expect this to be a big Aaron Jones and A.J. Dillon game. Rodgers will push it down the field probably in the first and second quarter to kind of get the team up and at arm's length. And then I wouldn't be surprised to see that game just turn into a pretty run-heavy second half.
Right. I see this one. I see this one playing out a little bit differently than you do. I think the Packers are still going to win, but I think that it's going to be a two possession type of scoring there. The implied point total coming into this one was 28-20 type of thing, with the Packers winning. Really, I see this one being the Packers probably about a 32-20 type of deal, 32-18 type of deal. Washington is still banged up. You got Gibson that is still battling some of that shin issue there. It looks like he's going to push to play and go. He could potentially be a little limited there. And I see that if they fall behind early, they're going to kind of game script him out and put J.D. McKissic in there to flourish in that passing game there. So that being the case, I see J.D. McKissic having a big game in this one. McLaurin is still banged up, but he should see enough volume in this one to be very fantasy relevant. It's not going to surprise me at the end of this thing if you told me that Terry McLaurin sees about 12 targets when it's all said and done. The question is can Heineke put it on him enough that he's able to bring these things down and have some good fantasy relevance there, because McLaurin has seen the most contested catches of any receiver in the league this year. So he's getting volume targets. He's just not getting great open looks and really allowing him to use his skill set to get open and get up the field and make a guy miss and get the ball in the open field. So Packers player usual suspects. I think they're all going to be very, very good, but I do think that the Packers cover, and I see the over being hit in this one, but it's going to be just barely on that over. Another question coming in here before we head into the next one. This one from Steve on YouTube. Should I trade Eli Mitchell and Mike Thomas for Chuba Hubbard? And the next one says Devonte. So that's Devonte Parker. No. I see where that one's tempting, right? Because Elijah Mitchell is in that Niners backfield that's going to be very congested here, I think, very quickly, because you got Jeff Wilson potentially coming off the pup. You've also got JaMychal Hasty, I believe, is going to be back in this one, and whatever they do with Trey Sermon there. So, but Elijah Mitchell is still going to be the lead back there. Mike Thomas, if he comes back, the Saints are hurting for a wide receiver in that deal, and he's going to then get the volume there. Devonte Parker, I think we've already seen Devonte Parker be passed on that depth chart there by Jalen Waddle, and the fact that you've got Will Fuller likely going to be coming back here in the next week or two, renders him to what I'm going to see as the third receiver on that team. And Chuba Hubbard, once McCaffrey comes off the IR, is it's only fantasy relevant when CMC's out. Any other thoughts on that one?
No, I think you nailed it. I'd keep a hold of Mitchell and Thomas. I just don't see I don't see the prize of that trade.
Right. When I look at these things, I look at, especially something like this, I look for the best player in it. Michael Thomas is the best player on that one, even though he hasn't necessarily shown up in fantasy last year or this year with it. But a healthy Mike Thomas coming back, he will get the volume in that one, because the Saints just aren't moving the ball very well with the receiving core that they've got now. So absolutely, Steve, that's a great question. Thanks for chiming in there. We appreciate you watching. Let's go ahead and head over to the next matchup here. Kansas City going to Tennessee. The Chiefs taking on the Titans here. Kansas City's favored by 4.5. The over-under is 57.5 points. What are your thoughts here?
I think Julio is probably the only guy that I'm not like instantly smashing the start. And you might have to, right? Like if you have to play Julio, you are hoping that he doesn't re-aggravate his injury. Like that's what it is. But if A.J. Brown's a go, you're playing him. He is going to be targeted early and often. Derrick Henry, must. All the Chiefs players, a must, right? You're starting Darrell Williams. You're starting Tyreek, even with his nagging injuries that he has this year. Kelsey's off the injury report, so you're playing him. Like, if you're struggling at quarterback, and I'm doing this in a league that I'm in with some work friends, is I'm starting Tannehill this week. Like, this game has the highest implied total. The Chiefs, I think, are going to have to keep throwing the ball so that way Derrick Henry can't bleed the clock and just beat him that way. And that's also the recipe if the Chiefs get up. You could see Derrick Henry not completely be game scripted out, but the Titans aren't going to be able to lean on him, much like the Week 1 game against Seattle, where Seattle jumped out. Tennessee has to throw the ball to keep up and stay in the race. And if that's the case, I like Tannehill as a sneaky play this week if you are hurting at quarterback.
Yeah, I like that one as well. Keep an eye on both A.J. Brown and Julio, right? Julio came off of the injury report last week to play, and he was coming off with a hamstring, and looks like he re-aggravated that hamstring in that game there. So I'd be keeping a very, very close eye on all the reports there. I'm not... Again, if I've got the option to pivot away from Julio, I'm going to do it. I don't have that in a couple of leagues, so I'm going to have to play him, and I'm just not thrilled about it. A.J. Brown also dealing with some illness issues there as well, some food poisoning stuff if the reports look accurate. So just keep an eye on that one as well. You could see some things there on it. But I think you're right. I think that you're just going to see the Titans, again, lean on Derrick Henry and really try and control the clock, because how do you beat the Chiefs? Well, you beat the Chiefs by keeping them under 30 points where they become very beatable. And one of the best ways that you can do that is to keep the ball out of the hands of Patrick Mahomes and that offense. So look for them to control the clock, look for them to do that. But I do like the Tannehill sneaky play there, because the Chiefs secondary does tend to give up a lot of points to opposing receivers there. I think that I think the Titans will stay in this game throughout this one. And I do absolutely love the receivers and the receiving options for the Chiefs in this one, because they could absolutely go bananas. Tennessee's secondary is bad. Like, they are absolutely just bad, giving up the second most points in the league to opposing wide receiving options. So absolutely, if I've got any of this is one of those that, like, you could see a McCole Hardman sighting. Like, that wouldn't surprise me on this one.
Demetrius Robinson.
Yeah. Yes, absolutely. Like, if I've got Chiefs players, I'm putting them in and I'm playing them. I don't know that, like, this one's here, that 58, the 57.5, that over under kind of scares me a little bit here, because I could see this to the point where the Titans really try and grind this clock and keep this thing moving on the ground. But yeah, it's if you're
the Chiefs or the NFL in general, at what point do you guys just say, okay, we're just going to throw 8 and 9 in the box? Like, if you think that you can beat us with Ryan Tannehill, we can die by that sword, but we will not allow ourselves to be gashed and worn down by Derrick Henry. And the best way to do that, as we've seen statistically with Derrick Henry over the seasons, is you have to jump on them in the first half. So you stack the box in the first half to keep his slow quarters or his down quarters, right, at a absolute minimum. And then the second half, you try and capitalize on the fact that you have a lead, and then you can play more balanced. But if I'm any defense right now, in the first half, you're going to see 9 in the box. I'm going to make Tannehill throw it, because he hasn't been as accurate this year. He hasn't been using his legs as much. His wide receivers are dinged up. And if one of them or both of them exit the game with injury, then you have a cast of nobodies who's trying to catch the ball. Like, prove me wrong. If I were a defensive coordinator, is what I would be telling the Tennessee Titans right now.
Right. So, and that's just an interesting one there, because if Julio's out and AJ Brown's a little bit slow, like everything I was reading looks like AJ Brown's going to be a go to play. Julio also looked like he was trending that way to play, but it's one of those that it just kind of concerns me because if you got guys coming off of illness, you got guys coming off of injury, typically that's a little bit slower week for fantasy coming through there. So one of those, keep an eye on that and just really make sure that you've got your lineup optimized that way is what I'll tell you. Let's go ahead and head on over to our next contest here. The Falcons are going to Miami. So the Atlanta Falcons, the Miami Dolphins meeting up. Atlanta is favored by 2.5 points. The over-under on this one, 47.5.
I like Atlanta in this one to cover. I think the bye week and getting them kind of re-energized, if you will, and being able to reset and try and at least make a wild card push needs to start. And Miami's a bad football team right now. And if you're going to have any shot of making the playoffs, you have to beat a bad football team. So I like the over too. I think Tua showed that he can move the ball, right? And his connection with Jalen Waddle is real. Mike Gesicki's been very good here the last 3-4 weeks. And I think that there's no reason why this game shouldn't hit the over. But I do like Tennessee to cover. So Calvin Ridley, Atlanta to cover. I expect Calvin Ridley to have a big day. I expect there to be a Russell Gage sighting for the first time all season long. The one who I'm not convinced we're going to see much of is Kyle Pitts.
Right.
And that's because we have yet to see Kyle Pitts in a whole lot of action when all the weapons are healthy for Matt Ryan.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I think this one here, if you told when it's all said and done, if we look up and you tell me that this is the highest scoring matchup of the week in terms of total points scored, it's not going to surprise me. Like this one here, both defenses are just awful, and the offenses are just good enough that they can move the ball up and down the field. And this one could very well turn into a shootout boat race type of deal. Just who can score the most points and who can race to 50 type of thing. That would not surprise me if this is how this one turns out. Again, I'm with you. I don't see Kyle Pitts having a big one. I do see Mike Gesicki, Jalen Waddle absolutely going off. I think Tua is in line for a very good game. Matt Ryan, I think, is in line for a very big game. I like that one there. The Dolphins, just to illustrate how bad the Dolphins have been, they've given up. They give up the third most points to quarterbacks, the most points to opposing running backs, the third most points to opposing wide receivers, and the 9th most points to opposing tight ends. So like if you play the Dolphins, it's very easy to be a get right game for your fantasy team in those matchups there. So I like this one. I think that you're going to see the over get hit. Interesting line movement on this one as well, right? When this one opened, the Dolphins were actually favored by a point, and now the Falcons are favored by 2.5 on this one. So normally you don't see a line move, a total of 3.5 points there inside a week without some major breaking news coming on this one. So just found that very interesting that the line moving there, but I do think the Falcons win and the overs hit on this one. So very cool. Let's go ahead and we'll head on over into the next matchup here. We have the New York Jets going to the New England Patriots. The Patriots favored by 7. The over-under on this one's 42.5. What are your thoughts here?
I like the Patriots to cover, and I like the under. The defense is still good, right? And the defense still takes away your best weapons. Right now, the best weapon, arguably, on the Jets is Corey Davis. He went 2 catches for 18 yards the first time they played this season, as the Patriots picked off Zach Wilson 4 times. Honestly, I expect more of the same, and the New England Patriots will get their first home win of the season. So kudos to the Pats, or did they get that? Yeah. So Patriots, I think you could see a 10-point game by the time this is done with, because I just don't see how the Jets are going to move the ball and be successful on offense.
Right. This one This one has shades of Thursday night just staring me in the face here again. So 2 rookie quarterbacks going at it. I'm not at all interested in playing either one of those unless I'm forced to, which you might be if you're playing super flex, things like that. You might be forced to play those guys. I'm not excited about it. I do think that Damian Harris has a pretty decent game in this one. The Jets tend to give up a lot of points to opposing running backs. So it wouldn't surprise me if you see New England really lean on the run game here, just kind of kill the clock, play behind that defense, and kind of win just a low-scoring defensive struggle is how I see this one playing out there as well. Not necessarily excited to play really any Jets on this one, and yeah, Kendrick Bourne maybe has a sneaky DFS type of upside on it. One of the other big questions is, does Jacoby Myers actually find the end zone this week? I'm kind of right there with you. So
no, the Jets have been really good against wide receivers who play outside. They're terrible against the slot, but they have not given up any touchdowns and are only allowing like 3 receptions a game. Now, part of it's because teams are getting the lead on them and they're running the ball, but the Jets aren't giving it up to outside the numbers receivers. So I think Jacoby Myers, if you have to play him, you have to play him. But you're hoping for a fluke and a magical touchdown sighting from him.
Right. All righty. We got a couple of questions coming in here. Nate on YouTube asks, Hubbard or Swift? For me, it's Hubbard in this one pretty easily.
Really?
Yep. I'll walk you through my thought process here, but
the Rams have not been that great against running backs, and especially not against receiving backs. We know the game script's going to be in the direction of Detroit needing to throw the ball, and Swift is like really their best option. Like they forgot all about TJ Hawkinson, so that leaves DeAndre Swift. Hubbard's going to be in it. Yeah, Hubbard. I tried to talk myself into Swift, and I don't think I can. It is Hubbard. The Giants are so terrible.
Yes.
And they're on the verge of being kind of the first team to quit, it looks like. So I think Chuba Hubbard is going to be involved in a game where Carolina has to find a way to rebound, right? They won their first 3 games. They lost their last 3 games. Chuba has to get involved to take a little bit of pressure off of Sam Darnold so he's not throwing so many interceptions. So, yeah, it does have to be Chuba.
Yep. And that's where I come down to it, is the fact that the Giants give up the 5th most fantasy points to opposing running backs. The Rams are 19th most, so the Rams are, well, they haven't been great like we've seen them in the past as far as the run goes. They are pretty good at limiting both running backs and wide receivers in points allowed against. So the Giants will give up a ton of points to it. That game will be closer to the point where I think you're going to see Chuba Hubbard just kind of, they're going to try and keep a very balanced type of deal. The Rams are heavily favored, and I think that game is going to be over by about halftime. And so they're going to become very one-dimensional. While that may help in a PPR side of things, I think the Lions are also right there with you as far as the Giants, as far as kind of being emotionally spent so far on this season and being that, in line for one of those first teams to just kind of pack it in and call it. Like the Lions have fought hard and they've got a lot of emotional energy, but it didn't look like the same Lions team last week from an emotional charge that we'd seen over the previous 5 games there either. So I think that there's a lot of things at play there that are necessarily even a little bit deeper than just statistics and some of the fantasy type of stuff there. So again, it's Chuba Hubbard, and it's pretty easy for me on that one. Great question, Nate. Thanks for the question. Let's go ahead and head on to another one. Lucas on YouTube. Do I start AJ Brown or Cordero Patterson in my flex this week? Cordero Patterson, pretty easy for me on this one. Who you got? That's one.
Look at that. Another great problem to have here in a week full of buys and injuries. Like, I really don't know that you can go wrong with either one. I think The thing about Cordero Patterson and the trend with him that just can't continue is his production based off of his volume. Like, he is scoring at a unbelievable clip per touch of the football right now. And at some point that has to fall back down to earth. I don't know that it's going to be this week. I think Cordero Patterson will have a good game against the Miami Dolphins. But man, I don't know that I could turn away from A.J. Brown. Like, given how bad the Chiefs' passing defense is, knowing that Tennessee is going to have to throw the ball to stay in this, like, is it more realistic that A.J. Brown sees, 9 catches for 136 yards and a touchdown, or that Cordero Patterson has 6 receptions for 87 yards and 3 touchdowns? Like, for me, it's A.J. Brown, but I'm not going to argue with anyone who would rather start Cordero Patterson based off of his propensity to get into the end zone and score points this season so far.
I like it. Lucas also saying he was leaning towards Brown because Ridley and Gage are both back, but still not sure. So Kevin gave you the reason to go with A.J. Brown on that one. I'll give you the why I would go with the Cordero Patterson, and you'll have a well-rounded view, I think, at that point as far as who you would prefer on that one, and you can make your decision there. So I'm going with Cordero Patterson on this one because of how bad the Dolphins defense is. Right, the Chiefs defense is bad, but Miami is absolutely awful on this one. I don't believe Xavier Howard. I don't know if he's going to be back on this one, which again takes away another piece there. But the Dolphins are allowing the most points to opposing running backs and the third most points to opposing wide receivers. So while Ridley and Gage are going to be back, and you could see some big things there, Cordero Patterson, they're using him both in a wide receiving type of role and a running back role. And while I think you'll see Mike Davis sighting on this one, I don't think that you're going to see a giant Mike Davis sighting. I think that you'll still see a pretty even distribution between both Cordero Patterson and Mike Davis. So that being the case, I think that he's going to see the volume in order to be relevant there. And it's not going to surprise me if he houses one either. So I can... that's why I would lean towards Patterson myself. Kevin made the great point. Like, there's a real good chance that A.J. Brown can house one from 50, 60 yards on this one because the way that the Chiefs tend to give up plays and give up points to it. And A.J. Brown is that kind of physical specimen that he can do that. He's a big body guy with a lot of speed and can make a play happen there. And so I guess I would put it to you this way. Lucas, if you need ceiling, I think A.J. Brown probably gives you I think he probably gives you the bigger ceiling play on this one. I think Cordero Patterson probably gives you a little bit better floor on this one. And so I would make it dependent upon your matchup on what you need. If you need a big ceiling play, a guy that can take a big time play and house one, I'm probably going the A.J. Brown route. If you need a guy with a little bit safer floor, I'm going to take Cordero Patterson because I think he'll get some pretty good volume there on both the run and the pass game.
And just out of curiosity, shoot us over the rest of your lineup. Like, if that's what you're fighting for your flex during this week, I'd love to see who else you're starting, because kudos to you, whether it's trade, free agency, or drafting. But just for kicks and grins, if you have a minute, kick over the rest of your lineup. I'd love to take a look at it.
Absolutely. Lucas, that'll be a fun one to see. Thanks for chiming in. Love the question there. Kevin, let's go ahead and head on over into our next matchup there. And that is going to be the Carolina Panthers heading to the New York Football Giants. Carolina is favored by 3 in this one. The over-under is 42.5. What are your thoughts here?
I have Carolina in this one. I don't know who's going to play for the Giants at this point. Like, you have Daniel Jones, Evan Ingram, who hasn't done diddly squat this year, and then who? Like, Kadarius Toney out. Galladay out. Sterling Shepard, they're saying that he re-aggravated that hamstring, which is a bummer because he would have been a really good play this week.
Yes.
So keep an eye on that. If he goes, there's a good chance that people are going to have to play him, and just hope that he doesn't.
Also out?
Yeah, Slayton's questionable, but not trending in the right direction from last reports I saw. I have no idea who the Giants are going to throw the ball to. So I I think this is a Carolina game. As said before, Sam Darnold is my shine of the week. I am starting him as my number 2 quarterback in our home league. I expect DJ Moore to have a bounce back week after 2 back-to-back kind of subpar performances from him, and things to kind of get right with Carolina here a little bit. Even with that, I don't know how we get to 42 with the lack of weapons from the Giants. So Carolina covers, and the under is how I'm going, because aside from defensive touchdowns, I just don't think the Giants have enough juice.
Right. And while the Carolina Panthers have regressed from what we've seen them coming out, starting the season out defensively, because they were very, very good defensively, and over the last 3 games, they just haven't been. And we've seen Sam Darnold kind of regress from the pace that he was on as well to start the season. But I think this is a get-right game for Carolina, and I see them covering. I see again, I'm kind of with you. This one's not going to surprise me if Carolina wins this thing 28-7 type of thing. 24-3 type of deal. Like, I can absolutely see this being just kind of a blowout type of game, and it's early, and both teams just kind of put the coasters on by about halftime with this. So I absolutely love the Carolina receiving options out there, to the point where I think DJ Moore is going to have a big game. I'm off of Robbie Anderson until he proves that he can do something. Terrence Marshall is actually out of this one. I believe he's still recovering from that concussion. So DJ Moore I look in line for him to have a big game, and Chuba Hubbard, I think, is going to have a pretty big game in this one as well, to the point where he'll be a fringe RB1 type of territory when this thing's all done, as far as I see this one. Looks like Lucas is chiming in on that one. He had a decent draft, but he went crazy with trades. He got Jones and Henderson RB 1 and 2. I like it. Hill and Ridley at 1 and 2. I like it. Traded for both RBs and drafted both wide receivers. First pick was also Kelsey, so your tight end is set there as well. It's a 10-man league. He started 1 and 4, so had to make some trades, and they've worked out for me. I would say that they absolutely did. Good job, sir.
Good job. Absolutely. So way to make the most of it and try and get back into the swing of things after a slow start to your season. So.
Right. And actually, right there is one of the things that we talk about, and we've mentioned before on the show, right? Like, when you get down 0-4, 1-4, even 0-5 type of thing, don't give up. Make the moves that you need to make, and make some magic happen for your team. And Lucas, sounds like you went out and did that. Congratulations and great job. Like, way to stay fighting in this one. And I think that you're going to have a very, very tough team to beat down the stretch here. Let's go ahead and head on over to Cincinnati. Bengals are going to the Baltimore Ravens. The Ravens are favored by 6.5. The over-under on this one is 46. What are your thoughts here?
I like the Ravens. I think they find a way to win this game by a touchdown. Now you're starting your cast of characters, right? You're starting Hollywood, Mark Andrews, Devonta Freeman is the running back of choice that I am starting in a couple different leagues for the Baltimore Ravens. Yes, Lev Bell is activated. There's always the possibility Tyson Williams returns to his week 1 form where everyone went, holy crap, look at this kid on Monday Night Football. And then for the Bengals, you're starting your wide receivers, right? You're starting Chase, you're starting Higgins, you're starting Boyd, and you're starting Mixon. So you're not getting cute with this. But as far as the game goes, I think Baltimore's just feeling it right now. Like, they're just on a roll right now. And if Lamar Jackson can continue passing the way that he has been, that leads towards good things for the receivers on that team. We might even see our first Bateman sighting. I know some people are standing on top of their tabletops dancing about this. I'm interested to see what the kid can do. I think I only have him in 1 league, and I don't even think I'm starting him in that league. I think I was set in other positions or in wide receiver before that, but we'll get to at least get eyes on him and see what he could possibly do making his Ravens debut here.
Right. I think you hit the nail on the head there, but I do think that this is going to be a kind of a gritty, tough AFC North type of matchup, where the defense will ultimately kind of play out. These two teams play each other tough. That whole division plays each other tough. Cincinnati's defense has actually been a little bit better than I think anybody expected coming into this season. So I think that they're going to keep this thing close, and I think the Ravens win by a field goal. That I think that this game is going to be super competitive throughout the entire game, and it's going to come down to that last kind of possession in that fourth quarters where you see one of these teams pull ahead and just hang on for the victory there. But yeah, I'm playing, if you've got them, I'm playing them because I think that you may potentially see some fireworks go off in this game, and you may see some big playability out of this. So I'm liking this matchup. And even though it's a low scoring game, I think that you'll still see some volume and see some yards to make those fantasy guys relevant there. But I do see the under on this one, and I do see the Bengals covering, and kind of almost a 20-23 type of game is how I see this one playing out. Let's go ahead and head on over into the next matchup there. We have the Philadelphia Eagles traveling to the desert to play the Las Vegas Raiders. The Raiders favored by 3 in this one. The over-under on this one's 48.5. What are your thoughts here?
This has the potential of being a pretty high-scoring game. Now, I like the Raiders. I like the Raiders at home. They seem to just be on a roll. And when their offensive line is working in unison, as we saw last week against the Broncos, they churn out the rushing yards. Henry Ruggs had a big game last week. I expect them to have another solid game, right? He's going to get his, 3-4 deep shots a game, seeing what he can do. I'm hoping, for the sake of a couple leagues that I'm in with Darren Waller, that we see a Darren Waller sighting and that he's able to make his presence felt again. But really, I expect a lot of Josh Jacobs. I expect Jalen Hurts to continue to do Jalen Hurts type things. They may not be pretty on the stat sheet, but for fantasy purposes, absolutely, you're playing Jalen Hurts. And I'm going to say the under. I think 48 is probably just a little bit too high for this game. So I'm going to take the Raiders to cover, but the under.
Yeah. And this one here, right? Like we've seen it when the Raiders win, Josh Jacobs has good games, and when they lose, he has bad games. And I think that the Raiders will win this one. So I do like Josh Jacobs this week to have a pretty darn good game there. The question really is do the Eagles actually run the ball, or at least attempt to try and run the ball in the first half there? We talked at this one last Friday about how they kind of do their game script and how they just don't bother to try and run the ball with either Gainwell or Miles Sanders there, and really just, tend to fall behind there. And it's garbage time catch up type of thing towards the end. But I do think that you'll see this game stay fairly competitive throughout. But I do think the Raiders win this thing, and I think they'll probably win it. They may win by a touchdown when I'm looking at this thing. Not going to surprise me seeing like a 28-21 type of matchup there. So I'm going with the Raiders. I'm going with the over just slightly, like, by half a point is how I kind of see this one playing out there. Let's go ahead and head on over into. Alrighty. So the Detroit Lions are heading to the Los Angeles Rams. The Rams are favored by 16. The over under is 50.5 on this one. What are your thoughts here?
Rams and the over. McVay and Matt Stafford just have this team clicking right now. D'Angelo Henderson looked really good last week against the New York Football Giants. Cooper Kupp and Robert Woods are both kind of clicking in unison here. They're at home, and the Lions, they don't have enough weapons to keep up. And the Rams defense is good enough to make them pay. So in most cases, you're starting Swift, unless you have a situation like earlier where you can truly pivot off of him and have a good option. But again, because of this week, a lot of people don't. So you're playing Swift, you're playing TJ Hawkinson. And outside of that, I'm not playing anybody. Like there has to be a better option. Like I know Amon-Ra St. Brown's been seeing 8 or 9 targets a game the last couple weeks, but he's going to see some Jalen Ramsey this week, and then that's not going to be pretty for anybody. Jared Goff is probably going to force some things into places where he shouldn't as he returns home and tries to prove something to his old team and coach. I think that's going to lead towards turnovers. So the Rams defense might be the play of the week this week. Not that we talk about that a whole lot, but I'm going to say we get there, and it's because the Rams are probably going to find a way to put up 40. And I'm just kind of hoping that the Lions can sneak 1 or 2 into the end zone to just help boost this up over the point total.
Yeah. Actually, it's an interesting thought there. Do you think Ramsey I could see Jalen Ramsey shadowing TJ Hawkinson a little bit more so in this one than necessarily Amon-Ra St. Brown. I think that the Rams will be perfectly happy to let the rookie wide receiver that was their 3rd, 4th string guy coming off to try and beat them. I think that they're perfectly happy with something like that. And
I honestly don't know that you'll see him shadow anybody. Like, I think they're just going to line him up, and whoever he matches up against, they're just going to take the win. Like, Jalen Ramsey is a plus matchup on anybody on this Detroit team right now. So I don't think that they're going to have to move him around in that way. They'll put him in different formations on the defense just to make Goff pay attention to where he's at. But it's not going to be, hey, we're sliding you here because of Hawkinson or St. Brown or whoever else the Lions are trotting out there. You might see him play almost like a safety role, and his role will be to get out into the flats to keep DeAndre Swift and Williams from catching those screen or swing passes that Goff has been throwing so much. So you might actually see some of that this week, and it wouldn't surprise me. But it's just not a good matchup for the Lions, and it's not going to be a very pretty one unless you're a Rams fan, and then you're just going to laugh and say, hey, I'm going to take the win because this is the office eliminator pool pick of the week. Like, if you're in an office pool and you're doing eliminators, if you still have the Rams and you just need a surefire way to get to the next week, this game and probably the next game are the 2 surefire bets.
Yep. And you said it already, but I look for Darrell Henderson to have an absolutely huge game in this one. Not going to surprise me if, he ends up as, a top 3 running back this week when it's all said and done. The Lions have been that bad. I think you're going to see the game script flip there to the point where the second half, it's going to be the Darrell Henderson show, just pounding it through the ground and chewing things up that way. So it does make me a little leery on the Cooper Kupp, Robert Woods, just because of how they might get game scripted out there a little bit. But at the same time, we've seen Sean McVay run plays to, having them run the ball, things like that to keep them involved. And so I think you'll see some very interesting play calling there in that second half of this one.
Yeah, I think McVay will keep them involved until middle to end of the third quarter. And that should be enough for this team. You should have enough plays in the first 3 quarters to get Woods and Kupp each fed and then rely on Darrell Williams because Sony Michel's questionable. Like, it's not even sure he's going to go. And if he's out, if you have Darrell Williams, expect you could easily get a top 5 performance this week out of Darrell Williams if you have him, because they're not going to just continue to chuck it all game long. They will be more balanced this game.
Yeah, I agree with you on the Henderson for sure. Let's go ahead and head on out to a different desert, going to Arizona. The Houston Texans go to the Arizona Cardinals. The Cardinals are favored by 18 points in this one. The over-under is 47.5. It's been a long time since I've seen a spread of 3 possessions.
Yeah, and I think Arizona still covers.
Yeah.
Like, it's just a bad Houston team. Like, when we saw this when the schedule got released, we were hoping for kind of a reunion, right? You could see Deshaun Watson come up and say hey to Nuke and kind of reminisce a little bit pregame and, talk to each other after the game and all that good stuff. And obviously that ain't happening. Deshaun Watson may not even be a Texan by the time this game kicks off, depending on, if any of the rumors are true. So Cardinals early, Cardinals often. Chase Edmonds, James Conner, both are very good plays this week. The passing weapons, you're playing all of them, but there's a good chance not all of them are getting fed, right? Like someone's going to be with the short stick, and if the Cardinals jump up early, it's probably going to be DeAndre Hopkins that gets the short stick of that. Like they'll pull him and just let him sit. They'll trot out there with Christian Kirk, AJ Green, Rondell Moore, Zach Ertz. They'll get him involved, and they realize that they need DeAndre Hopkins. And just because we're not seeing it on the fantasy turnout compared to years past doesn't mean that the Cardinals are oblivious to the fact that they need him down the stretch. Like he is not someone that they can just forget about.
Right. Actually, James Conner is a guy that I'm looking to try and find a way to play in this one. I do think that you'll see the Cardinals get up big, and I think in the second half you'll see them turn to a ground and pound type of thing with him to try and chew up some of that clock, things like that, more so than Chase Edmonds, who's been a little banged up there. So yeah, I looked at, we talked about this last week when, sometimes even though these guys are active, it's a rest kind of game. They're active, they're out there, they'll play a few snaps, things like that, but they'll, especially when these teams start pulling ahead, they'll find ways to give them some rest and not necessarily push them too hard there. So with this one here, and the way that I see this one playing out there, the Cardinals will be up big in the second half, and you'll see have a James Conner sighting on this one. Wouldn't surprise me if he also falls into the end zone when it's all said and done. But I see the Cardinals winning. I see it's not going to surprise me if the Cardinals put up 40 by themselves, and you're hoping that the Texans find a way to make a special teams play or manage to get a busted play where they put one in the end zone.
I think Brandon Cooks gets in the end zone. Again, Texans are bad, but Brandon Cooks is still putting up numbers, especially in PPR formats, just because he's kind of the only show in town.
Right.
So he is the one and only Texan that I am playing this week. Outside of that, I am finding any other option. I would rather play Allen Lazard than anybody else on the Texans. Pick the New York Giants wide receiver who's going to be the healthiest and play him over anybody else of the Texans. That's how bad it is. And again, another ugly game this week.
Yep. Question coming in on the YouTube from Amar. He is saying, should I trade Mixon for AJB and David Montgomery? What are your thoughts here? I need a second to think about that one.
I think I'd do it. If you can absorb the time that you'll be without the running back, right? Because Montgomery's still banged up. We expect him back here in the next couple of weeks. So if you can absorb not having that caliber of running back on your team, then absolutely, because A.J. Brown is going to be a weekly start for you at wide receiver. And then you have a very serviceable running back in David Montgomery, whose playoff schedule is primo again. So if you can absorb it in the short term, it will benefit you in the long term.
Yeah, I think that's where I came to on this one as well. AJ Brown is a guy that we just haven't seen the talent. He's an uber talented guy that we just haven't seen it translate into fantasy points this year. And I think that you'll see that change during this back half here as the Titans really start getting healthy and get rolling a little bit there. Because
as defense is playing, right? We talked about that earlier. As defenses play the Titans differently, AJ Brown will be able to break out more. So
and
I like it a lot.
Right. And David Montgomery is going to get a similar workload to what Joe Mixon gets when healthy. So, as far as a volume running back there, I like the trade. I'd probably do it if you can get that haul back for it. So, alrighty, let's go ahead and head on over into the next matchup here. And we've got the Chicago Bears heading to Tampa Bay to play the Buccaneers. Tampa Bay is favored by 11.5 in this one. The over-under is 47. What are your thoughts here?
Tampa Tampa Bay's been terrible against the spread this year. They're only 2-4 against the spread, but they're 5-1 as a team. 11 points. I'm going to take Tampa Bay to cover. I just don't think the Bears have enough offensively. And where the Bears struggle the most is also where Tampa Bay's weakness is. So Mooney, you'll see Mooney splash. Him and Justin Fields seem to have rapport. If Allen Robinson can't find the ball, or if Justin Fields can't find Allen Robinson this week, I'm smashing the panic button. It is time to sell and get anything you can for Allen Robinson. He should be able to have a glimmer of hope. And in most cases, you have to play Allen Robinson this week, right? Like, excuse me, where you drafted him, you are almost just completely hamstrung into it. And I understand that. I am doing the same in a couple leagues. And I am just praying that Justin Fields can realize that I have a all-pro caliber wide receiver that I just need to get the ball to. And we will see. Now, part of it's the offensive play calling, right? Matt Nagy's terrible. Like, again, he's an offensive guy who was supposed to come in, and the offense looks worse now than it did the day that he took it over. So Justin Fields is going to be seeing a lot of pressure from the Tampa Bay front seven, and he's going to have to find quick ways to dump it off, which does hurt Allen Robinson because they have him running some of the deeper and more intermediate routes where Darnell Mooney's running some of the shorter stuff. They need to change up their route concepts a little bit just so that way they're not predictable in Chicago. But Tampa Bay is going to do their type of things. I don't think this defense is going to give Tom Brady much of an issue this year. He realizes he lost to him last year, and this was kind of the loss that set Tampa Bay up for success, right? This is the game that they lost and rehuddled and worked on everything and then went on their run. So Brady doesn't typically lose to the same team 2 years in a row.
No, the one thing that makes me a little sad in this one is trying to figure out how I can possibly play Khalil Herbert other than the fact that it's by Mageddon. This one here, the Bucs have been just solid against opposing running backs. And so again, I do see that the Tampa Bay covers. I think that the implied point total cumulative is pretty good to the point where it's almost a push type of thing for me. But you hit the nail on the head, right? Chicago's going to have to move the ball through the air. I don't know that they're going to be able to do that even against this banged up Tampa Bay secondary. And Tom Brady is Tom Brady, so I look for them to go out and move this, even without Antonio Brown, even without Gronkowski, both of which have been ruled out already for this game. So, yeah, I look for Leonard Fournette to have a pretty good game again. I see him putting up, again, a very, very nice number for you. If you've got him, start him. If there's any question about that, you should already have him as a almost set it and forget it kind of guy at this point in the season. Same thing too, right? Like I think Chris Godwin will be a little bit more in the mix here. I see it probably as more of a Chris Godwin game than a Mike Evans game. So I would lean that way as well. But this game, I don't see it ultimately being close. And I see Tampa Bay walking away with this one. And folks that are having to start Khalil Herbert being frustrated by the output there. One thing else to keep in mind is here's how I see this one. If Khalil Herbert gets all of the workload, I'm still probably going to play him just from a volume-based type of thing, that hoping he can break one, hoping that he can make a big play on that. He showed some pop, and he's got some receiving chops there as well out of the backfield. But
and that's where you nailed it, right? Like he needs 5 receptions to maintain his fantasy relevancy. Like I don't see him just being able to do it on the ground, but if he can go 5 for 35, right? There's 8 points that you can sneak out of him in, by Mageddon. So that's where you get stuck. You have to play him on the offshoot that you can just get garbage points from him and have them add up to be enough to save your rationale for starting him.
Right. But be on the lookout because Damian Williams is out, and the earliest that he can return is Saturday, depending upon how he tests. And coming off the COVID list, we don't know whether or not they would necessarily bring him in if he's cleared to play and bring him back. But if he comes back and he's active, that scares me off of Herbert a little bit more because Damian Williams has the better receiving chops there. So if that's the case, and it's going to be a backfield by committee in this one with the receiving work going to Damian Williams, I'm out on Khalil Herbert. Let's go ahead and head on over here to a question. Jason on YouTube, A.J. Brown and Miles Sanders for Hawkinson and Gibson. I don't really know how to feel about Gibson right now. Also, my tight end currently is Noah Fant, and I'm not sure if Fant to Hawkinson is a big upgrade. At this point in the season, it's not. If we were closer to draft season, it would have been, but we've seen the Lions not go to Hawkinson and Fant actually getting worked into the Broncos pretty regularly there. What are your thoughts on this one?
As much as I don't like Miles Sanders, and I have traded him away in every possible league that I say that, it was like 2 or 3 leagues where I had him in. I've traded him away in all of them. I get moving off of Miles Sanders, but Gibson scares the crap out of me because of this fractured shin. Like, it's going to take one hit in his leg to become a real problem, and a hairline fracture that he can kind of power through to him being down for the rest of the season or the next 8 weeks and crippling you. I wouldn't do this. I would bank on the fact that we've seen the worst of A.J. Brown this season, and it's only going to get better. And if you want to move Miles Sanders, try and find a different dance partner for that. But Gibson's not the answer. Like, I'd be looking at Josh Jacobs, Chase Edmonds, something like that. Hell, Zach Moss is a better fantasy option right now than Miles Sanders. Like, and that sucks to say, because we saw last week that Miles Sanders has the talent, but the Eagles don't have the cognitive ability to get him the football in meaningful situations. Right? And that's a whole lot of syllables to say the Eagles suck at calling plays, but they do. They're terrible. But I just couldn't. I don't know that I'd want to give up on A.J. Brown right now. I think we've seen the worst, and we're going to see an upswing the rest of the season as teams just become damned and determined not to get beat by Derrick Henry. He's embarrassed enough people that the NFL defensive coordinators are taking notice. He's always been great, but he is out of this world good right now, and defensive coordinators are going to spend all week long just game planning for him, which will open up possibilities for A.J. Brown.
Cosign. I don't know that I could have said it better. So cosign on that one. Jason, thanks for the question. Absolutely love it coming in there. Guys, if you have any questions, comments, anything like that, throw them out here. We love chatting them and walking with them through you. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. Let's go ahead and head on over into the next match.
Hold on. I just got another one as you pop the screen up. All
right, let's go.
It involves the team we just talked about, the team we're getting ready to talk about. But would you rather have Michael Pittman or Darnell Mooney this week?
Man, we're getting into the receiver we just got done talking about and the receiver that we will be talking about here in just a moment. Right. And Jason, we appreciate you tuning in. Man. Thank you. Absolutely. For me, man.
I just got that from one of the buddies on my softball team. I like Pittman.
Yeah.
Is who I like. Yes, last week was a little bit down, but 3 out of the last 4 games, he's seen 6 or more receptions for 75 or more yards. We would like for him to fall into the end zone a little bit more often. We will see how that goes as the Colts kind of continue to find themselves. The 49ers pass defense is not as good as it has been in years past, so you can throw against them. And I drafted Justin Fields. I want the kid to be good. Like, I still think he's the second best quarterback in this draft class. But the play calling in Chicago is atrocious. So will Mooney see 6 receptions for 75 yards?
No.
Yeah.
I don't think it's this week. I could.
Think so.
It could.
No one else. All these quick, short little slants, right? Like, and that's where I think they're going to come. Short slants and everything else. With T.Y. Hilton trending towards not playing again because he re-aggravated his injury. Paris Campbell being out for the year.
Had surgery today.
Yeah, so it is. It's Michael Pittman and Zach Pasquel. And Zach Pasquel's another guy who, for, by Mageddon, a lot of people have forgotten about him again. Yep. So if Zach Pasquel is sitting on your waiver wire or your bench and you're wondering what I should do, he's a sneaky play in your flex spot or in your receiver spot if that's where you need the help. But we'll get into that here in just a second. I'll let Derek share the graphic and the line so I don't steal his thunder.
There you go. You talked me into it. I was already leaning Pittman, but 100% on board after you walk through that one. All righty, let's go ahead and head over to San Francisco, where the Colts are coming to town. And San Francisco is favored by 4 points. The over-under is 43 on this one. What are your thoughts here?
I like the over, and I think the Colts are going to cover. I think I would take San Francisco on the money line, though. So the Colts are 4-2 against the spread this year. The 49ers are 1-4. So I could see this being a field goal game that goes in San Francisco's direction. But I think the Colts – this will be a tight game, right? Debo will have a good game. You're playing Debo. You're playing Elijah Mitchell in most cases, even with Jermichael Hasty being activated. Hell, that might just mean that Trey Sermon doesn't see the field at all. Right. It's just not been a very good start for him. So other than that, sneaky tight end play, Mo Alley Cox, see if he can find the end zone again as – Carson Wentz has seemingly found his tight end of choice, right? It's not Jack Doyle. It's Mo Alley Cox. And then you have Pittman and Pasquel are kind of your only two standout receivers for the Colts. You might see a Brandon Ayuk sighting this week. We talked about this a little bit, right? Coming out of the bye week, realizing that they need to get him involved. Kittle's still banged up. He's not playing. He's still on the IR. So the Niners are going to have to move the ball a little bit. So you might see some Brandon Ayuk, and quite frankly, same situation. You're probably forced to starting him if you have him. So Niners win, Colts cover, and I like the over 43s. I have a hard time betting unders on 43.
Yeah, this is one of those. It's not going to surprise me if the Colts can pull a sneaky win here. Like it's just not right. Like I think a lot of this is going to come down to. And both of these teams have been pretty stout against the run this season. And so when it's all said and done, right, like who do you trust more to move the ball through the air? Do you trust Jimmy G or do you trust Carson Wentz? I think I like the Carson Wentz route in that one, even with a depleted wide receiver core there. But I do like, you brought up the Brandon Ayuk. I really like that one. I think this is a sneaky play here. I like him in a lot of DFS type of deals because I think he's going to be overlooked. So he can potentially be a little bit of a difference maker for you there. And I do think that that's where we saw Brandon Ayuk really thrive last year was when either Debo was out or when Kittle was out, and he was a primary target in there. And so that being the case, I think you'll see Brandon Ayuk sighting on this one, and I look for Pittman to have a pretty big game. Not going to surprise me if he gets up there around probably 7 receptions, 90 yards, and about a touchdown is how I've got that one slated up there. Zach Pasquel, another sneaky play that I like there as well for that one. Any other thoughts on this one?
No. When NBC booked this game for Sunday Night Football, they were hoping the records were inversed, right? And that they were 4-2 and 3-2. But nonetheless, it's a national game. Like, these players get hyped up for it. We're going to see a lot of energy. Darius Leonard, the all-pro linebacker for the Colts, I think is going to have an amazing game. Same thing with Fred Warner, excuse me. Thank you. I think both middle linebackers are just going to be playing out of their minds here on Sunday night. So that'll be fun to watch if you're a student of the game and you can appreciate what these linebackers do on the defensive side of the ball. But overall, it's not the playoff implication, like big game that NBC was hoping for when they booked this one.
Yes, absolutely. Question coming in. This one from Garrison on YouTube. I have both Washington running backs, Pittman, Goddard, James Conner, Khalil Herbert needs to fill one running back spot and two flex spots.
Who are you starting at tight end if Goddard's a flex option?
Yeah, that's what I'm curious about as well. Garrison, if you can tell us who your tight end option is there, that'd be great.
All right, so process of elimination. Khalil Herbert is out. I'm not playing him against the Bucs, not having to.
Right.
So I'm not going to worry about that. Both Washington RBs.
I like McKissick in this one a lot.
I like McKissick's the safer option than Gibson, right? Because if they get into negative game script, I think you're right, Derek. They're going to write Gibson out of it. Or if he takes a hit, I mean, Gibson scares the shit out of me right now. So I think McKissick's probably the better running back play. Honestly,
I like Conner.
I like Conner. Well. I like Conner too. So let's see. So we need a running back. So we going McKissick or Conner? I'd
go with Conner in the RB slot. Like I said, I think that the Cardinals will be up big in that one. And you're going to see a heavy dose of James Conner just throughout that second half, to the point where it's not going to surprise me if you see James Conner get 20 touches in this game.
And that's I was leaning McKissick, figuring negative game script, and he'll probably see 5 or 6, 7 targets come his way out of the backfield, and probably a little bit of rushing work for the football team early in the game, as they don't want to have Gibson further injured. So I think for the running back, I'm leaning McKissick in that setting. And then
I say if you're picking Conner as one of those flexes, it's a moot point anyway.
I think I am almost. I think I'm leaning Goddard and Conner. I think Pittman in this situation is the odd man out.
Well, he's got to fill 2 flexes, so he's got 3 spots. One of them has to be a running back, and then 2 flexes. So 3 players total. I'm going McKissick, Conner, Pittman is how I'm rolling this one.
I'm thinking McKissick, Conner, and Goddard.
Okay. So looking at it too, when he's saying Waller is his other tight end, and it's a full point PPR. Okay, so let's walk through this, since we got a little bit of differing opinions here, and if nothing else, we'll give Garrison our thoughts, and he can kind of pick which logic he likes better and make his decision that way. So we're both on the same standpoint. We're starting McKissick. We're starting Conner. Where the difference of opinion lies is Pittman and Goddard. So you want to go with Goddard first? You want me to give the Pittman side first?
The reason I'm leaning Goddard more is he seems to have an easier time finding the end zone than Michael Pittman has had with Carson Wentz. So Pittman might see a couple more targets. He might even see 3 more receptions than Goddard, right? It might be 9-6 or even 6-3, something like that. But I think Goddard will have an easier time getting into the end zone against the Raiders than Pittman will against the Niners.
And actually looking through some things, I might be changing my opinion here. So looking through it, looking on it through how it comes down to how you plan on these things getting divided up here, right? So Garrison, I've got the statistics based on half point PPR scoring, which you can translate that pretty easily to full point PPR scoring there. But when you look at it right now, the Raiders give up the most points allowed to opposing tight ends at 12.4 points on average per week. The San Francisco 49ers give up the 8th most points to opposing wide receivers at 26.7 points on average there in half-point PPR scoring there. So looking at it, you've got to then decide on how you see this thing getting broken down and how you see it getting distributed, right? So in Philadelphia, there's only one tight end, and it's going to be Dallas Goedert now, because you don't have to worry about the Zach Ertz split anymore. So if the Raiders do it where it's at average and they're doing it 12.8 points given up there, you're going to see Dallas Goedert probably fall into the end zone with probably 3 or 4 receptions for about 30, 40 yards, somewhere in there. So let's just give him the stat line of 4 receptions, 40 yards, and a touchdown, which I think is going to be pretty easy for him to do there, which in that scenario gives you right around 14 points for it, which is probably pretty close to how he's projected anyway. But looking at it, and the Colts doing 27 point, or the Niners giving up about 27 points allowed to opposing wide receivers, eighth most there. How do you see this getting broken up over the Colts wide receivers, right? You're going to see Zach Pasquel get some. You're going to see Michael Pittman get some. And when it's all said and done, you'll probably see Michael Pittman. Like I said, I think that I'm probably going to see him with about 7 receptions for about 90 yards and a touchdown is how I've got that one kind of studded out now. So it really comes down to how you're going to look at this thing. I think Goddard has the safer floor with it because I think that he is more likely to find the end zone on this one. He is the big body target that Hurts looks for in the end zone there. Pittman is a guy that is going to have to try and break one, I think, a little bit and probably get a 10, 15 yard touchdown pass on that one. It's not going to come from short yardage in there. And man, so the way I would phrase that one up is if you need the ceiling play because you're playing in a deficit and you're projected to lose, I'm going to play Pittman and take the higher ceiling, but I think Goddard has the safer floor of the two. So it really just kind of comes down to on where you need the points and how your matchup looks. Any further thoughts on that one?
No, I don't think so.
Okay. Garrison, I hope that helps you out and you can take it for what it's worth and let us know which one that you go with there and let us know what the outcome is as well, please. All right. So New Orleans Saints are heading to the Seattle Seahawks. The Saints favored by 4.5. The over under on this one, 42.5. And my goodness, this is going to be a very interesting Monday night game. This is not at all what I think they had planned either when they booked this one on ESPN.
No, it's not. It definitely has the name recognition behind it, but with Russ being out, yeah, Seattle being at home helps everybody on Seattle. It helps Geno because he's not fighting crowd noise, and because Geno's not fighting crowd noise, it will help DK Metcalf. I still don't think Tyler Lockett's going to do anything. Understand, you might have to play him depending on your situation. Alvin Kamara is going to see a big game. You'll have Marquez Callaway with a little bit, Juwan Johnson, a tight end, wide receiver swing option, depending on what platform you're playing in. I think Juwan Johnson is going to find the end zone this game. And yeah, I do think the under. Like I just got done being on the 43-point game that I don't like betting the unders. I'm betting the under on this one. Like I just don't think we're going to see much offense in this game. So we're looking at something, 20-17, 17-14, kind of like what we saw on Thursday night. And when it comes down to it, Alvin Kamara is the best running back on the field and able to do that. And the New Orleans pass defense is good enough to keep DK and Tyler Lockett in check because Geno's playing quarterback, not Russ.
Right. Yeah. And this is one of those that it just doesn't have the feel of a very high scoring game when I look at this thing. The question is what Jameis Winston shows up. Is this going to be the Jameis Winston that shows up and puts up a monster game for you? Or is this going to be the Jameis Winston that just doesn't, and they've got to find other ways to try and keep this thing competitive. Seattle's been very forgiving in the past in their secondary. So I could see Jameis having a decent game at this one. Alvin Kamara will get his run, and the Seahawks are giving up the 4th most points allowed to opposing running backs. So I think he is going to go absolutely ham in this one. I'm not liking really any of the New Orleans pass catchers though in this one. And with Seattle, again, I see Tyler Lockett, like you said, I'm going to fade him if I can. Geno tends to look for DK from what we've seen out there. And this is going to be again, the primetime games this week or when it's all said and done, I think are going to be a little bit difficult to watch there, but I think that the under is going to be hit. And I'm going to take the Saints to cover on this one. Any other thoughts on any of the games?
No, I don't think so. It's not the greatest slate, right? All these teams on bye with so much fantasy relevance, which hurts big time. And yeah, like it's just going to be a little bit different than what we've been accustomed to here the first couple weeks. But it's only 1 week, and after that, we get the Cowboys back, we get the Chargers back, we get the Vikings back, and the Bills, and so it's 1 week. We just got to find a way to get through it. Best of luck. Let us know if you have any questions. Start, sit, trade, waiver wire pickups. We're more than happy to help out best we can, but we understand this is going to be a tough week. So best of luck to you in your fantasy endeavors for week 7.
Absolutely, guys. If you can do us a favor and again, where you can find us to send us any of those trades questions, start sit questions, anything like that, is at Good Old Boys FF. You can find us on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. Again, that's at Good Old Boys FF on any of those platforms there. Very happy to interact with you guys and answer any questions that you may have. One of the best ways that you can help support this show is to head over to YouTube and click the subscribe button, ring that bell. We bring this show 3 times a week during the season live. We go Tuesday nights, 11 p.m. Eastern, Friday nights, 11 p.m. Eastern, and Saturday mornings, 11:45 a.m. Eastern. And very much appreciate everybody tuning in and chatting with us and giving us a chance to help you guys walk through your fantasy football journey here and all of that good stuff. But for Kevin, I'm Derek. Have a good one. Be safe.